Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of NCompass Live. I am your host, Krista Porter, here at the Nebraska Library Commission. NCompass Live is the Commission's, the Commission's weekly webinar series where we cover a variety of topics that may be of interest to libraries. We broadcast the show live every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time, but if you're unable to join us on Wednesdays, that's fine. We do record the show as we are doing today, and it will be available later for you to watch at your convenience. Both the live show and the recordings are free and open to anyone to watch, so please share with your friends, family, neighbors, colleagues, anyone you think might be interested in any of the topics we have on NCompass Live. For those of you not from Nebraska, the Nebraska Library Commission is the state agency for libraries. So we are similar to your whatever state library. So we provide training and databases and consulting and grants to all types of libraries in the state. So you will find shows on NCompass Live for all types of libraries. Public, academic, K-12, corrections, museums, historical societies, et cetera. Really, our only criteria is that it's something to do with libraries. Sometimes we have Nebraska Library Commission staff that come on and do presentations for us about services and programs that we're doing here through the Library Commission, but we also bring in guest speakers sometimes from all across the country, and that is what we have with us today. Joining us this morning is Brian Kendall. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning.
And he's from the Arkansas River Valley Regional Library System, as you can see there on his slide. And he's going to talk to us about a very important topic that all libraries need to be on top of all types: emergency management in your libraries, and how to how you can handle that. So I will hand it over to you, Brian, to take it away and tell us all about what we can do in our libraries.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Brian Kendall. I am the Community Resource Coordinator for the Arkansas River Valley Regional Library System in Clarksville, Arkansas. I'm pleased to be here today with you guys to speak about the importance of emergency management in libraries. This is a topic that is becoming more important as our libraries continue to serve trusted and accessible spaces within our communities. A little bit about me is my professional background includes law enforcement and state government. I've worked with, multiple jurisdictions, trying to get hazard mitigation plans and emergency action plans in place for their, jurisdictions. I have a master's degree from Arkansas Tech University in Russellville, Arkansas in emergency management and homeland security. And, these roles in my education have kind of given me a little bit of an edge on, making sure everybody here in our region itself is prepared from, mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So today I'll be connecting those experiences to the unique role library play, not just as places of information, but as essential community assets that must be ready to respond when emergencies occur. Let's see. So here are the objectives for today's presentation. First, we're going to look at how to identify risks that are specific to your libraries. Every library is going to have something a little bit different, but we all share common vulnerabilities tied to the public spaces, and recognizing those risks is the first step towards mitigating against those threats. From there, we'll look at how to build simple, practical emergency plans. This isn't about creating something very detailed or too complicated. It's just about developing a plan that staff can actually use in the moment, when stresses rise. Another objective is to prepare staff for real-world scenarios. Plans are important, but they are only work if people understand them and feel confident in applying them. We'll talk about ways to make those trainings more realistic and effective. We're also going to focus on how to protect both patrons and library services. That includes immediate safety, but also thinking about how to continue operations and maintain access to resources during the actual event. And finally, all of these are going to tie together into a bigger picture, which is to provide a framework for building resilient library services so that libraries are not just reacting to emergencies, but are also prepared to adapt, recover, and continue to serving our communities. So why does this all matter? when we are talking about emergency management and library matters, we should remind ourselves about the libraries and what they've become today in our communities today. They're no longer just places filled with books. They've evolved into highly accessible public facilities that serve a wide range of people every day. That openness is one of the greatest strengths that libraries have, but it also introduces additional risks that must be addressed. Libraries also function on community gathering points during emergencies, during severe weathers. Maybe like during the summer, you'll have like extreme heat in your location. You'll have patients come in and, use it as a cooling station, check out a book, maybe grab some water just to get out of the elements. Another factor is that libraries often support individuals who may already be in vulnerable situations. Again, those people that are coming in from the outside just to escape the heat or extreme cold. Maybe they don't have a place of their own, or maybe they can't afford to keep their heating bill on during the, winter times, or the AC on in the summer times. So we also have to consider that libraries face diverse emergency scenarios, from natural disasters to medical incidents, to security concerns. Even cybersecurity is a problem for libraries. So at the core of emergency management in libraries, because it's directly supported the three things: protecting people, maintaining access to services, and ensuring that libraries continue functioning as a trusted community resource, even in times of crisis. So here are some of the disasters that you can face. Disasters are primarily categorized as natural or man-made disasters. Both can significantly disrupt operations, but they're often require different planning and responsive approaches. And you got to also remember that each one of these disasters most likely have a secondary disaster coming following behind them. So tornadoes and earthquakes, you don't just have to worry about the tornado or the earthquake. You also got to look at maybe you're going to have power outages or water leaks, cause fires. All of these things are things that you got to prepare for as well. So starting with the natural disasters, these events are caused by environmental or weather-related forces. For example, in most parts of the United States, tornado outbreaks can lead to sudden evacuations, structural damage, especially in public buildings like libraries that are heavily occupied during the daytime hours. Severe flooding, that's another problem. A lot of our libraries are located along river systems. In fact, our main headquarters here in Arkansas was, just across the street from the river. And we almost had it coming into our doors a couple years back. So planning for those kind of things. Also, wildfire smoke for people out on the West Coast is probably a big issue. And those can damage, your resources inside your computers, your books, anything that you have inside your library. So how do you identify those risks? So when identifying your risk, you want to look at your location specific. So we'll experience things here in Arkansas that you may not experience in the Northwest or the Northeast. For example, tornadoes. I mean, being in Tornado Alley, Nebraska is a big, right down the middle with us. We experience tornadoes quite frequently, but you may not have a tornado in Alaska. So you want to focus your disaster risk identification towards your specific location. Let's see. So once you've got your risk identified, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of come up with a risk assessment. And how that is done is you're going to take those risks that you have identified, you're going to kind of break them down. You're going to say, what could happen? How likely is it to happen? And what could the potential impact be from those disasters? So, for example, with the tornado here in Arkansas, it's pretty likely that it's going to happen. And, they range in a wide spectrum of, structural damages and, could cause loss of life and everything else. So it's going to rank pretty high up on our scale here in Arkansas. Whereas earthquake, we've had them, but they're not something that's really going to impact it. So they'd be kind of low on the scale. Plumbing leaks, again, stuff like that. That's all going to be incorporated here. Cybersecurity threats. Let's see. It could be even things as an active shooter, even workplace violence. You can put that stuff into this. And if you look down here at the bottom left-hand corner of this slide, you can go through here and it'll help you identify some of those risks that your area may be facing. So the NOAA weather website there at the top, it's going to give you the past occurrences in your jurisdiction. And what you'll do is you'll go in there and you'll put your location in and you can select wildfire, and it'll tell you how many occurrences have been in your area and the amount of damages that those caused. And you'll use that data to create your risk assessment and determine your probability of something else happening.
Yeah. And I'll jump in and mention while you're on this here that these slides will be available afterwards with the recording for everyone. So don't worry about trying to scribble all this down or write it or anything. You will have access to the slides with the recording and be able to get these links and everything from Brian's presentation.
Okay. So once you have your risk assessment done, you're going to kind of look at emergency management in these 4 phases. So you've got mitigation, you got preparedness, response, and recovery. So mitigation are the actions taken to reduce the impact of a disaster or threat. So that would be the same as like purchasing generators before a disaster hit. You know, that way, if a tornado came through and knocked out the power across town and it impacts your building, you still have power. Or for a hospital even, you know, they'll be able to keep their patients on the critical machines that they need to stay, you know, alive and well. Another option are how, for example, is schools have now put safe rooms in the schools now. So you can actually retrofit buildings with panels that just pretty much go into the walls to kind of mitigate against tornadoes. Let's see, what's another example here? Wildfire. A lot of burn fire breaks. Like if you have a facility that's close to a wood line, you know, like a forest or something, you can put a burn break there to kind of help mitigate that fire from jumping over to get to your facility. So preparedness, once you move in from mitigation to preparedness, this is going to be where your planning starts, your training and your exercising. So in this presentation today, I want to focus on 2 of the main plans that you really need to look at, which are your emergency action plan and also your business continuity plan. In that, we'll also discuss like the training methods that you can take and how often you should do those. So once you're prepared, you got your staff trained and all that, you move into response. This is where your emergency action plan is going to kick in. So what do you do when you have a tornado heading your way, or you're in the middle of an earthquake, or a fire has broke out into your facility? This is going to be where those come into play. They're going to tell you what to do in the now. And then once you get into from response, you're going to transition into your continuity. And that's going to be, how do you keep your facility able to continue its mission essential functions up to 60 days or until you can return to a state of normalcy. And then you have recovery, which is basically coming back to how things used to be or better. So again, here's some examples of mitigation. They say for every dollar you spend with mitigation money, you're going to save 4 in the long run. Some of the mitigation strategies are, you know, your generators, safe rooms, education. That's one everybody can do. It doesn't cost you a thing, maybe a couple sheets of paper, but you can get that information out to not only your staff, but your patrons. You know, we need to protect them as well. Having a NOAA weather radio in your library, that's a good one. That way, if you have severe weather coming, you're getting those alerts, you know, before it even gets to you. So to help pay for some of these mitigation strategies, counties are supposed to have a hazard mitigation plan in place. And there's grant money through that plan to get those generators, to get those safe rooms built. Speak to your local OEM and see if that your library is a part of that plan. That way you can get that grant money and put it towards your generators and things. Again, the types of plans that we were looking at: the emergency action and response plan, continuity plans keeping you up and going up to 30 days at least, Maintain your plans. When you got new hires coming in and out, make sure all that information's up to date. Your vendors list are up to date. Keep a log of your training and the types of exercises you've done. Also incorporate a disaster go bag or a disaster kit. This could be things like flashlights, batteries, having a list of your personnel's medical conditions in a sealed envelope, just in case first responders need to get it in the event that something does happen. When you're doing your plan, bring in your local fire department, your PDs, your OEMs, all of them. Bring them in to kind of have some input, because they're going to be stakeholders in your plan anyway. Include your boards, your county judges, your mayors, whatever you have. Just bring them in and let them know what's going on. So what does an emergency action plan do? It identifies the hazards. It gives you the response to those hazards. It also establishes a reporting structure, outlines critical roles and responsibilities, establishes evacuation and sheltering procedures, and it also gives you your emergency contact lists and communication procedures. The continuity of operation, or COOP. Sometimes they call them a business continuity plan, but it's the same thing. This is going to be, these on your screen here are critical to have in your plan. You want to list out what your mission essential functions are. You need orders of succession, at least 3 deep. Your processes and procedures for delegating of authority. Continuity facilities. Where are you going to go if your building is impacted? Are you going to stay in another location? Are you going to work from home? Are you going to go to the Starbucks down the road? Where are you going to be able to continue doing what you need to do? Continuity of communications. How are you going to get information out to the public? How are you going to keep up with staff, family members? How are you going to maintain those communication processes? Vital records. This is something you need to keep either in a hard copy off-site. You can do an electronic copy. Like, let's say if you have a flash drive, you got all your, personnel files backed up onto a flash drive every day. Make sure it's off-site, at least 7 miles away from your current facility. You can also use cloud-based storage, anything to have a backup of what you need to have to operate. Human resources. Who are going to be the ones in there to run the show? Who's going to be doing what during this time of disaster? Let's say your branch manager can't do their job, or your director, or whoever. Who can they pass off that authority to if they need to? And then your reconstitution, that's basically bringing things back to the way they used to be, or to a better place. And then testing and training of the exercises. This is where you can do tabletop exercises, have everybody in your building just sit around a table, work out a scenario, and go through the whole processes. You can even do like an active shooter training with your local PD, to where they come in and really reenact the situation. But just make sure you're logging, keep track of who was there, that they know what they're supposed to do. Also ensure everybody has a copy of these plans and they understand what their roles and responsibilities are.
Someone does have a question about on that slide, the orders of succession. You said at least 3 deep. Can you explain a little bit more about that? The reasoning and the.
Yeah, if you have a large, library system, or, if it's just at your branch, you'd have your, let's say it's just at the branch level, you have your branch manager, maybe an assistant branch manager, and then somebody who can come in and fill in those shoes if the other 2 can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going
to be like, if there is one of these natural disasters happening, some of these people may be dealing with the same damages to their own homes. So you'd need someone else to, okay, so-and-so's house is gone, we got to go to someone else to take care of the library.
Exactly. Or if you got, if you have somebody out at a conference somewhere, like say your director, and then the next person in line there is homesick with a kid, then who's going to be making those decisions while you're at home,
Yeah.
But having those in place kind of helps things stay moving.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
Let's see. So again, here's our training and exercises. We talked about tabletops, drills, and exercises, making sure everything's updated, like your new hires and terminations, medical conditions, contact information, emergency contact. And then after your plans are done, go back and sit with your team and talk about, hey, what worked and what didn't work? How can we change it to make it more efficient? And you can do quarterly updates or your annual updates as well. So the tornadoes came through, or the severe storm, or whatever you've got has come through, and now you're trying to recover. So first you want to go back when it's safe and you're told you can do so from like a first responder or something like that. Assess the damages. You know, what did you lose? What do you still have that works? And what are you going to have to do to get everything back and going? So you should already have your roles and responsibilities in place for this part, but if you don't, this is the time you go ahead and sign those out. Again, salvage what you can. Restore services as quickly as possible, and you may be able to continue services even through these times. So let's say you have a book route or something. Your book route can still run, and maybe your book route, when it gets to the places that are impact, can be your mobile library. So another thing is, during your recovery phase, look at ways to mitigate future occurrences. So my slides are a little short, but I figured at the end of this, we'll have a lot of time to sit and talk, and kind of, because I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions and answers on this. But libraries also play, all know that libraries play a critical role during disasters. Making sure they're prepared and there for your patrons is the biggest thing you can do. Making sure everybody's safe. You got to be able to make sure you can get your, patrons to where they can use the resources that you have. All right, here's some resources to help you write your plan. FEMA.gov is a really good one. Ready.gov is fantastic. And that also have templates there that you can go in and do. So you can get these out to your patrons too. So it'll have like family preparedness guides for families. Tells them what goes into a disaster go kit. It'll also have small business continuity plans for maybe like, your mom and pop shops as well. There's exercises for kids. There's tons of things on there. And I think there are some in Spanish as well. So those are some great resources that you can reach out and get to.
Well, that's good, because that's actually answers a question we already had, because someone was asking for examples of plans that to look at.
Sure. I have one here. Let's see if I can pull it up, if it'll let me. If not, I can send out copies of stuff that you can look at. And a lot of these, so like on the emergency action plan, your processes and procedures like that are going to be pretty much the same wherever you go. I mean, you're going to have to tweak it to fit what you need, but they're all much pretty, the same. Fires, where you just evacuate the building, you have your meetup spot, you keep tabs of who's there. Tornado, get to the safest room in the facility. I mean, all of those are going to kind of transfer around. Let me see if I can figure out how to put this on here for you guys. And I'll walk through this plan with you.
So I know I know many libraries, lots of libraries have these kind of plans, and I know some are trying to come up with one or tweak one that maybe is pretty old. So it's always good to look, and you can always probably just search online and see if some other library has posted their plans or policies for this. Here in Nebraska, of course, we have tornadoes, like you mentioned, Brian. That's a common thing, and it's kind of interesting. You're talking about every Wednesday morning at 10:15, our tornado sirens go off to test. So every Wednesday when I'm doing the show here, I always got to make sure, tornado sirens are going off. It's all good. So in case we do need to use them, the city is testing them. But just recently this year, wildfires are now happening in Nebraska. There are areas that are completely wiped out and devastated. The cattle don't have feed and everything. So it's a whole different type of natural disaster that hasn't really been as, there's always been grass fires and things that happen. We have red flag warnings because it's so dry with the drought and whatnot. But wildfires taking out swaths of acres and acres is something new for us. Yeah.
All right, I've got a plan here I'm trying to pull up for you so you can kind of walk through it and see what it looks like.
Sure.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes. Yep. Looks
Okay.
good. Yep.
So this is our emergency action plan here. Let's see if I can scroll here. So this page here is pretty much just whoever's going to sign off on the document.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be for us, it would be our director. And then here you want to kind of give out your purpose of the plan, the scope of everything, your objectives, and your policy, showing that the plan is, it's a binding document. Your collaborations. So this stuff here, and again, you can get a lot of this in a template that FEMA will put out. So all you got to go in is plug in your information.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get down to the big stuff. So here's our communication, what we identified. We're going to use telephones, email, websites, emergency notification methods.
And someone has a tip for the communication. You're talking about contacts. This is where you would want like someone's personal contact info, not their library info, of course, because if the library is out of commission, they're not going to be able to get to that phone or that email possibly, but they might have a personal phone or email that they can get to, like on their phone or something.
Correct. And you'd put that as you'd put that in the very back, and it would be like a call tree kind of thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You'd have a list of who's going to call who. That way there's not one person trying to make all these phone calls, and killing valuable time that you need to be doing something else.
Doing other things, yeah.
So let's see. And here's where we talk about our continuity operations right here, but it's just kind of like a brief intro to what the continuity plan will be, because your continuity plan will actually encompass this part. So your EAP, which is this plan here, will actually be a part of your continuity plan. I'm trying to get down here to the good stuff. So here's our vital records that we identified: personnel files, payroll records, financial records, insurance policies, contracts and agreements, digital catalog data, patron database, and so forth. And we have all these backed up. We use a cloud-based backup system. We do have some hard copies that we do back up in an offsite location as well. And again, if you're doing it that way, you want to at least be 7 miles away. And I think that's the FEMA recommendation for, to make sure you still have everything backed up. And this here discusses how we, restore our services. Let's see, training and exercising, assignment and responsibilities. And another thing, you want to identify the equipment that you're going to have to maintain to keep running. This right here is just, the equipment that we have in the facility for, emergency, like fire extinguishers, CO2 detectors, the weather radio, and first aid and so forth. But if you have to break out and do a continuity plan, if you're doing that part of it, you're actually going to want to identify things like how many printers do we need? How many chairs and desks do we have to have? Computers and laptops? All of these things you want to have listed out in your plan.
For when you have to go to like an alternate site.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's some of the things that we reported for our, disasters. And again, this is still a working document. But, prior to coming to the library, I would have never thought of bed bugs, but,
right.
But,
we've done sessions about bed bugs that come multiple times because it is such a thing that comes into libraries, unfortunately. Yeah. So,
having to come in and add that as one of our, threats, I was like kind of taken back. I didn't really know how to come to that. So, but I've learned something on that one. But bed bugs. So you got to identify the hazards that could be in your area. It may be fires, even bed bugs. We have a nuclear plant just right down the road. So
there you go. Yep.
And another thing, if you have a major highway running through your area, you also have to think about stuff that's being transported up and down those roadways, railways, rivers. So if, say you have a truck turn over on the interstate or one of your major highways, you could have a hazmat occurrence there, because the clouds and all that may drift into where your library's at. So these are all things you have to think about when you're doing these plans. You kind of become one of those doomsday preppers in a way.
It's better to be, like you said, being prepared saves you in the end. Yeah.
100%. So here's our evacuation map for our main headquarters. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just kind of label out where your stuff's at and how you get out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you talk about where we're supposed to meet. So we're adjacent to one of our branches here, and our designated spot to go meet up is just right outside of the front of there. So that's our fire evacuation process and procedures. Again, it does not have to be overly complicated. Just be simple, basic. It can be bullet pointed, whatever you wanted it, just as long as your staff knows what they're supposed to do and how to be safe doing so.
And would you recommend someone's know doing, like you said, going over this everyone, but actually doing, fire drills or,
Yes.
drills, yeah, testing out. This is what will happen if there is a severe. I mean, we have severe weather week or something that the state does, and everyone's supposed to review these things regularly. It's always the beginning of the spring, and possibly do like we did in school, fire drills, so
Yeah.
the way to go when it's time.
So, quick story. When I was a police officer, we had one of the schools in the town I was working at. They wanted to do an active shooter scenario, and they did it over spring break. So they had a bunch of kids sign up for it to be actors in the whole thing. But we actually had to go in with blank ammunition, and we're shooting in the building just to kind of give them that real feel what would happen. The sounds and all the chaos that was going on. You had kids that were acting like they were injured and everything else. I mean, it was intense. But you don't have to go that far out with it, but you could do like exercises to where you're pressure testing, your procedures. And then that also helps them to be better prepared to, respond while they're stressed out.
Right, because that stress of those situations, for many people, your brain just is going to go blank, possibly, and you're not going to,
Yeah, you can read the plan a million times until you're actually in a scenario. You don't really know how you're going to respond. So some other ones we identified, we did severe weather, earthquake, winter storm, power and internet disruption, water leaks. We've had several of those over the past couple months, breaking out the dehumidifiers and everything. Gas leak. That's another one we've had here recently. So again, here's your hazmat. So, if you have railways and all that going through, you got to think about that. What's going to happen if those turn over? There, you may not even know it's there until it's too late, because a lot of that stuff is odorless and can't see it and everything else. So, a good book to have on site would be the hazmat book. It's the It's the Hazmat Response Guide is what it is. I can't remember the actual acronym for it right now, but it's a good one. And it'll give you information like how far should I stay away if this spill occurs, or what would it do, and all the side effects, the things that could happen to you if it's there. And it's a great one to have. It's the ERG. That's the name of it. And you can actually download a copy of that on your cell phone too, and kind of check out, see what you're driving down the interstate next to sometimes with the placards on the back of the trucks. So you can look up those numbers and see what's
in there.
Yeah, and it's terrifying actually.
That you don't realize what is being transported across our country and what you're just driving right by.
All right, so we had nuclear. So we have a nuclear plant close to us, and we've also listed out our shelter-in-place procedures and our evacuation procedures. Okay. Let's see. Workplace violence, we identified. Active shooter seems to be a big one now. We use the run, hide, fight method instead of the avoid, deny, defend.
We had training here a few years ago that they did, and that is what they were teaching us. We had the state did a thing for state agencies where the state patrol came in and did training, and they did that as theirs.
And here's another one that you could use, bomb threat. So it seems like libraries are under a lot of fire. We're in the line of fire now with all those crazy bad things that are being said about us.
Yeah.
So you never know. You're probably more than likely going to have some of these will happen one day, like threats, maybe even a bomb threat. So making sure your staff has, the information that they need to know.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, this caller sheet right here. What were the exact words of the guy, time, day, how did he sound? Could you hear any background noises kind of help tell where he was at? Did he say what kind of bomb he had, where it was going to be at? Was it a man, woman, child, adult? All this information that law enforcement can have
Nice.
to help them out. And again, there are templates for all of this online.
Mm-hmm.
Medical emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure everybody's first aid trained, CPR trained, or AED trained. What to do if there's blood and all that good stuff. So we actually we put in our plan an offsite injury. A lot of the time we're out delivering books to the different branches,
Sure.
or, what do you do if you're in a car accident?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of folks wouldn't know how to, find insurance in the car. Is there even insurance in the car? So,
especially if you're using a car that belongs to your agency, like we have state vehicles that we take across the state for travel. It's not our own car. I know where my stuff is in my car, but I'm not necessarily one of the state vehicles.
Again, those pesky big bugs. And then, we've got it to now we have collection boxes around our region to where, we get them. We had to change our whole protocols of how we were picking them up to now we isolate those books until we get them back to where we can make sure they're, they don't have something in them.
Mm-hmm. Those things will spread too quickly. It's scary.
So then here you go. Your training and maintenance logs for your plan. Just a simple table outlining where everything's at. And then that's basically your entire emergency action plan. Again, so this plan here will actually be a part of your continuity plan. So your continuity is going to tell you how you're going to keep your mission essential functions going throughout, once the disaster's passed. This plan here is the in the now. If the tornado's coming, what are you going to do? If the earthquake's happening, what are you going to do? You just have to identify the types of threats that your locations are going to face. So like if you're in California, you may have tsunami, or in Washington State or Alaska, any of those places. What do they say? Wyoming setting on a big super volcano. What are you going to do if a volcano erupts, any of those kind of things, flooding, winter weather. So figure out what you want to put in your plan and then prioritize those disasters into that risk assessment matrix and then start planning from there. There's nothing that if you feel like it needs to be in there, it needs to be in there.
Mm-hmm. And with everything changing, with like I said, with the wildfires we have here that we've never had. I mean, I know the news says it's the largest wildfire in the history of the state. So not something we'd ever have thought of before, with all the climate change and the drought we're having. So maybe thinking outside the box of, it's happened next door in their state. It could, you never know. Might as well have something in here about fires or floods. We get the floods when the snow melts in the spring. Sometimes we had back in 2019 major flooding of a whole bunch of, like half the state flooded. Both we had libraries that had issues and people's homes. So there was that. So we have some other questions here. And anybody does have any questions, we have plenty of time. Go ahead and type them in. Anything that you want to know about, anything that you're in your particular library, particular situation that you might be dealing with, or any other tips and tricks you want. Like I said, the slides will be available. And I know, Brian, if you're willing to share this Google Doc, I can also put this up with the recordings too, as just one example that you all could use. If you want to, mark over it like draft or something like that for people. But there are, like I said, examples on the FEMA websites and things as well.
FEMA also has a mitigation handbook too that'll help you come up with mitigation strategies. So it gives you ideas of for each this type of disaster that you potentially face, with the exception of bed bugs.
That's a library specific one.
Yeah. So they'll have things like pandemic, and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
that
I
gives you
know. I mean, that's
strategies on how
something
to
I'm sure a lot of
negotiate with yourself.
libraries have information up now. I know at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we have stuff on our website as a state library for specifically for all about that. And now we've kind of morphed it into just any kind of pandemic response. Here's some resources that you could you might that we helpful for you. So that's something new that we need to always be aware of, because there could be another one. You don't know. We have a question here that came in. Someone wants to know more about after action reviews. Can you talk about how to do an effective review, like after an event has happened?
Sure, you can do it both after your training and exercise program and after an event. So basically, you just get everybody in a big circle and it's like a powwow. Hey, what did you think worked best here? What do you think we need to change? I mean, it could be simple like, well, I didn't like the way we exited the building during our fire evacuation. So maybe we need to come up with a different way to go out the door. Or I don't think that this room is going to be sufficient for a tornado, maybe because it's on an outside wall, but it's the only room in the building that doesn't have windows. So just things like that, just kind of work out what you think is going to be the best fit for your group and test them. Once you've come up with new ideas, test them.
Yeah, testing is probably very important. Definitely, they say, yeah, because until you try it, you don't know if it's going to work or how it's going to work. Yeah. So let's know, would you recommend or suggest doing anonymous type reviews like that? Like maybe someone doesn't want to say in front of everyone, I didn't like how we did this.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that, like send out note cards or something. Hey, if you didn't feel like comfortable talking out in the group, write your card down and put it in a box or slide it under my door or anything you can, just to, if you feel safer and more comfortable doing it that way, do it that way.
Mm-hmm. I think the key is just letting them know we want your input. We want to make sure everyone understands what needs to be done depending on what the emergency is, and feels comfortable and safe with what we're doing.
Yeah, because I would be the one to slide my note under the door, honestly. I'm the worst public speaker you could ever have. So
yeah,
when you asked me about this, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to get on there in front of all these folks and panic. So, but it's making people comfortable. And it's funny that came up because I went to a class last week about the same thing. And that was one of the things we talked about was how do you get everybody to where they can get their information out that needs to be out, just anonymously slide it under the door.
Yeah. There are a lot of people just are introverts, anxiety, whichever, but just letting them know it's okay. Communicate however best you can. We want to make sure everyone is safe whenever anything like these things happen. And hopefully we'll never have to use this document, but
But I beg you, when you do this, don't just write it and stick it on the shelf and let it collect dust. Get it out, make sure it's up to date, practice it. Otherwise, it's just a paperweight.
Yeah, because there's going to be new things that you might need to be responding to, and staff changes, phone number changes of different organizations or places you're supposed to call. You want to make sure you have something that is correct, rather than of course, 911 is, you can call, of course, in general, but depending on if there's some specific agency you're supposed to reach out to do like hazmat cleanup or something after the fact, you want to make sure that if any of that information has changed, that you have the correct and most up-to-date info.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mean, saying that reminded me that when you're in a disaster situation, resources are going to be limited because you've got the whole community that's going to be begging for help and assistance. Mm-hmm. So you got to know how to take care of yourself. So make sure your team's trained so they have a better shot at doing so.
Yep, absolutely. Like you said, the CPR training and the basic use of things like fire extinguisher, or basic things that you just have for even some of those smaller emergencies, fire blankets, whatever you might have. So make sure people know where they are, that you have them, how to use them.
Oh yeah. Another thing you need to think about is when those kind of things are happening, don't make phone calls, use text, because the phone lines they're going to be swamped. They're going to be backed up. Text are more likely to go through.
That's a good tip. Yeah. Definitely. All right. All right. I've asked all the questions that have come in so far. I'm just making sure everything out there. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions you want to ask? We still have a little bit more time. We had a lot of great conversation and tips and questions from people, so that's great. I'm glad. Hopefully this is useful to everyone. Like I said, I know here in Nebraska, we've got tornadoes, we've now got wildfires, we've had floods. So it's definitely something that, and we actually recently had a staff person here at the commission, at our state library here, at the library commission, do a revamp our disaster and all that kind of planning document that we had, because it was unfortunately outdated. Yes. We, as I said, we've had tornadoes that have come close enough to the city where we've had to go down into the basement here in our tall office building. Well, tall, like 7 stories. It's not that tall, but it's tall enough to get away from the windows and away from any of that. But so we did just redo ours. So I'm glad for that. All right. I don't see any other desperate questions coming in. I can't see if you all are typing, so I'd have to wait to see if anyone does have anything. We do have a hand raised. If you want to type in, there's a question section you can type into if you have a question or a comment. There's a little box with a question mark on it there. You can type in there and ask your question or comment. And for all the FEMA resources we're talking about, the slides will be available for you with all those links built into there for you to look at when I get the recording up. I'm not seeing anything coming. Let's go back here. Okay. Okay, there I see the questions here. Got it. It's a question for me, not for you. All right, not a problem. It's about when we wrap up things here. Okay.
I was going to mention something to you guys. Yeah. FEMA also offers online college credit courses. It's through their independent study, and it's all disaster, related classes, like how to write a continuity plan. Nice. There's actually one for educators. There's all kinds of different things, national incident management systems. So get on there. They're free. You get a certificate at the end, and then you count towards college classes.
Oh, nice. Okay. And I would say too, for those of you, and I'll say specifically in Nebraska, but possibly in other states, we do offer CE credit for attending things like this workshop and other ones, anything related. We have a public librarian certification program, and you do a certain number of hours of professional development, continuing education, attending workshops, conferences, whatever. And something like that would definitely count towards your CE hours here in Nebraska. And possibly in your states as well. So I would check in with them to see if that's something you could then, you're doing this for the library, for your library job, for your work there. Definitely it should count. It will for here in Nebraska. Check your own states. All right, and since I mentioned that about certificates in CE, that is one of the questions that did come in, that yes, after for today, for receiving CE, about an hour after our session is over, everyone who attended live today will get an email automatically generated from the GoToWebinar system that actually says, thank you for attending. This email serves as your proof of attendance, and it will have a PDF certificate attached with your name on it and saying which specific NCompass Live show that you attended. So you will receive a certificate to everyone who attended. Everyone in Nebraska, I will pull the attendee report and I give it to our continuing education people here, and they will automatically award you or put your CE hour into your CE record if you're in our public librarian certification program. So that's automatic. If you're not in Nebraska, you will just need to reach out to whoever is your CE granting body, whoever handles that in your state, and ask them how they submit proof. Like I said, you will receive the email and a certificate from the system, so that should hopefully be all that they need. All right, I am going to share my screen here now. There we go. And we have some thank yous coming. Thank you. Very informative. Yes, definitely. So thank you so much, Brian, for being here with us this morning. Great presentation, great information and resources for everyone. Lots of thumbs up coming through in the system. Thank yous. Like I said, I hope this will be, I think this definitely will be helpful to all types of libraries out there to definitely get their plans either created if you don't have one or updated.
And if you guys ever need any help with it, please reach out. I mean, I'm happy to help with anything I can.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I believe your info was on your slides somewhere too. If not, we also linked to the, as you can see here in our event page here, linked to the Arkansas River Valley Regional Library System, contact info, everything on there as well. All right, so thank you, Brian, so much. Thank you, everyone, for being with us here this morning. As I said, the session is recorded. And if you use, actually I'll go here first, whatever is your search engine of choice and type in the name of our show, NCompass Live, you'll find our main page here, which is all of our upcoming shows, and a link down here to our archives. All of our show archives are here. This is where today's will be. By the end of the day tomorrow at the latest, it should be up as long as GoToWebinar and YouTube cooperate with me. I will post a link to the recording on the Nebraska Library Commission's YouTube channel and a link to Brian's slides. You can send those to me whenever you get a chance, Brian. Everyone who attended today's show and registered for today's show will get an email from me letting you know when the recording is ready and up here. We also send a message out. We have a Nebraska mailing list for library staff, and we also have social media. We have a Facebook page. No, go back. There we go. We have a Facebook page for NCompass Live. So if you like to use Facebook, give us a like over there. We do reminders. Here's a reminder to log into today's show, meet our presenters posts, and then when the recordings are ready, I also post on here as well. I use a little hashtag abbreviation NComp Live for the show. I also push things out onto the Library Commission's pages. Library Commission has an Instagram account I put out through my LinkedIn, anywhere I can think of. So, but the Facebook page is our main social media specifically for the show, or you can just keep an eye on our main website for when we have upcoming shows. In our archives here, if you want to do a search here and see if we've done a show on a topic that you might be interested in, you can do that. You can search our full show archives or just the most recent 12 months. If you want something just current, very, very current. And we do have that one little filter because, and this is just a general keyword search of any words in the description session presenters in that post and the event page. But this is our show archives going back to when NCompass Live first premiered. And if you can see the little scroll bar here, I'm not going to scroll all the way down because it's huge. This is only halfway down the page. NCompass Live first premiered in January 2009. So we are in our 18th year of the show. Oh my gosh. And we have all of our shows here. So do pay attention, to be aware when you are watching any of the older shows to the original broadcast date. Everything has a date on it, so you know when it first happened. Some of the shows we find to watch good resources and information stand the test of time, but some things will become old and outdated. Resources may have changed drastically, might not exist anymore. Links might be broken. People will probably work at a different library or different place than when they presented for us 10 or 15 years ago. So just be aware of that as you're watching any of our other older shows. But this is something libraries do. We keep things for historical purposes, and as long as we have a place to host them, which right now is the Library Commission's YouTube channel, we'll always have them up and available for you to watch. And as I said, everyone who attended today, you will get a email with your proof of attendance. If you're a Nebraska library and you watch a show, we do have specific forms that you submit for submitting for CE. If you don't watch a live show, if you watch any of these recorded ones, you'll need to apply for that. We don't know who's watching the recording ones. We only know who watches the live shows on the day of. All right, so that wraps up for today. Thank you everybody for being here. Thank you so much, Brian. This is great information. On next week's show, it is the last Wednesday of the month, so that means it is Pretty Sweet Tech Day. The last Wednesday of the month, our technology innovation librarian, Amanda Sweet, always comes on to talk about something techie. We have other tech-related shows on during the month too, but you can always depend on Amanda being here on the last Wednesday of the month. And next week, she's going to be talking about the recent Computers and Libraries Conference. She attended and presented at that, is in Washington, D.C. area, and she's going to talk about all the cool technology innovation things that she learned about at Computers and Libraries this year. So please do sign up for that session next week and any of our other upcoming shows that we have coming up in the next few months. All right, so thank you, everybody, and hopefully we'll see you all in a future episode of NCompass Live. Bye-bye.